Okay, so we've been working with the cleanup. The cleanup helps you to grow up. And then you can concentrate on waking up, but it doesn't work that way. It's more like multitasking, and then you have to clean up something else. And you can focus on waking up, and then you have to clean up something else. And the way he describes it, you're not cleaning up stuff so that you become more perfect. We're not trying to, did you notice that? We're not trying to be more perfect. It's not what we're trying to do. It's about, let's say you need so much energy to go to a bigger level. And if you think of all these energy bubbles or something, and you got these bubbles that you're holding down, that you're not wanting to look at. Just like Maureen just said, those bubbles are taking energy for you to hold them down. And then if you're holding them down, you won't have enough energy to go where you want to go. It's just really solid like that, We, in some ways, we're infinite and absolute, and in some ways we're not, and it's kind of important not to mix up the levels. And I notice that's what happens a lot, is we mix up the levels and confuse ourselves to death. So now we're going to start moving to 5D, and you'll see you can't make believe 3D is 5D. Mixing up the levels doesn't really work. But like if I slap you across the face, there's a big chance you won't like me. There's mixing up the levels, like everything's beautiful, we're all fine, blah, 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 blah. That's more like the absolute plane. Does that make sense? There's no wrongness. That's the absolute plane. There's no wrongness.
You're saying you can't take that into 3D.
Yeah, to take that into 3D is there's no wrongness, so I can do whatever I want without any consequences. Well, you try it and it doesn't really work. Because it's not how 3D operates. But in 5D, there's no wrongness. And when we're following our impulses in 5D, you're connected to your impulses, you're following your impulses, there's no wrongness. It's already not a wrongness happening. If Claire wants to be quiet and I'm in 5D, I don't even think there's a wrongness. Like, you don't even think that way. You notice it when you're holding more dimension. So we're gonna start working with a bit more bigger dimension now. So let your body just be big. Or feel the walls, both sides of you. Feel the front of your body expanding, the back of your body expanding. Be big. It took me a lot of years in my work. I'll just describe something real personal. It's kind of, I wanted to be able to work on that total edge between growing up and waking up, and be able to have clarity around that edge and be able to work that edge with clarity. And in the beginning, I knew how to work with people's personal psychologies, or I knew how to help them wake up, and it was like it was two different things. I wasn't knowing how to play that tightrope in between. And now, yeah, I've been doing this work for 38 years or something. So if you did it every day for 38 years, you'd have to be learning something. So now when somebody is sitting in front of me talking, it's almost like a diagram for me. It's like a math equation. I see the structure of their circumstance and their psychology and their multi-generational conditioning, but I also see their habit formations of how they know, how they talk reality themselves and what's their options and how they can move. And if I'm working with a couple, I can see that for both people. Before, I couldn't see so structurally. So I can see if one person in a couple is asking another person in the couple to do something that they can't do. And maybe this person's really right. So it's not a right-wrong game, but it's not something this person's going to do it for 25 years. It's not going to happen. You know, I can see what doors they have available to them. And what I work with is going through the doors you have available to you. Does that make sense? Whether that's right or wrong, you know, you can only go through the doors you have available to you. And it's not really cold-hearted. It's like a math equation. It doesn't feel cold-hearted, you know, to me. I can feel warm, but this is just, if you want this, this has to happen. Like if you want your wife to feel relaxed and comfortable and secure, maybe you can't do this behavior to her repetitively. You know, you can't undermine her and threaten her and criticize her all the time. She's not going to feel those. She's not going to feel loved and supported and secure. So there's just certain ways things work. All right. Then you move up and you have 5D. Now when we're in our big selves. So let that big self be big. Let yourself feel everybody in a room. And this is where you can drop being a human and just be energy itself. Just be life force itself. And it doesn't mean that anything wipes out. 5D doesn't wipe out 3D. So let yourself be the absolute. And when you're in the absolute, you really realize if Claire's hurting, you're hurting too. It's not any trouble to realize that. You realize if you cut down all the forests, there's no clean air for everybody. Like it's not hard to comprehend these things from 5D. Do you notice the interconnectedness of life isn't a stretch. From 5D, it's totally easy not to ascribe intent. So feel that, notice that. When you're in that big self, it's easy not to ascribe intent because it's not really even how you see reality when you're in 5D. The little kid is crying and you notice the little kid's crying. You don't think, oh, that little kid's trying to get attention. That little kid's trying to manipulate me. You know, you just don't ascribe intent. And what do? You go by your knowing. So you got a different thing you're going by in 5D. You're going by those subtle knowings. And when you're going by those subtle knowings, it gets you right off the right-wrong game board, right? You don't even see reality in right and wrong anymore. You got those subtle knowings. Now the thing is, in regular life, you'll be in 5D for a while and then you fall into 3. You know, it's not like you're just in one or the other. Like I've had subtle knowings in my dealings, and when I go with them, there's a rightness to them. Okay, so you got subtle knowings. When you go with your subtle knowings, there's a feeling of rightness. Not that you're right, but a rightness. Things are in their proper place, or there's a rightness. You're not attached to the goal, right? You just know, I need to, whatever. Just automatically you're not attached to the goal. But you know you need to do the good fight, or you know you need not to. And it's just, you know that. Now, when I'm working with somebody, you could call, when you're feeling flat and you're believing things that aren't true, that you've made up, and you've made them true, you could call it a non-resourced state. Yeah, because you put yourself in a state that has no resources, yeah? By how you're talking to yourself. Got it? You're in a non-resource state. So what I've noticed from working with people all these years, people don't change from a non-resource state. It's not how change happens. That doesn't mean if there's a habit happening that you can't use a bit of aversion. That you can't, like, say, well, anything adverse, you know. You keep eating 2 cups of white sugar every single day. There's a giant chance that your teeth will fall out. You know, you can use aversion. You can throw in negative things on purpose to yourself. That's really different than doing a negative loop. Because it's the truth. It's negative things, it's the truth. Does that make sense? If I just don't move, maybe my body won't want to move, because a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. And I notice that if I read a book all day, then I don't want to get up and, can you make me a cup of tea, honey? No, I don't feel like making a cup of tea. This is what I'm doing today, you know, body at rest stays at rest. Doesn't even want to make its own cup of tea, right? And if I'm doing stuff, then I don't mind making a cup of tea for somebody, you know, because I'm the one doing stuff. Notice that, just how it works. Okay. So, I'm getting to a little bit of a complicated thing, so I'm kind of give you all the blocks. So, what I'll say to somebody if I'm trying to get change from them, I'll say things like, what would you have to know to be able to do that? Or I might say, if somebody did that easily, who would they have to be? So that I'm moving them out of lack and into resources. That's what you were just doing in the last exercise. That's moving you out of lack and into resources. If I want this, then I'd have to be this kind of person. You don't like how you did that. How would you like to be instead? I'd like to be, and then you're holding a picture of where you want to go. Got it? I'd like to be somebody who can do this and this and this and this. And that doesn't work unless you're specific. So, when your daughter aggravated you, when you slapped her across the face, what would you have liked to have done instead? And you go, I would, and usually I'll give you a step in there, something that makes you break it down. So you'd say, I would like to have noticed that I was getting irritated with her. Then I would like to be able to say to her, stop doing what you're doing. Then I'd like to be able to say to her in a strong voice, that's enough now. Like 1, 2, 3. Okay? So, and what would you have to do to be that person that knows how to do that? And then I start working with the person. Generally, that would be one of the formulas I'm using half the day. What do you have to do to be that person? And they go, well, I'd have to be able to feel when I'm upset. I was working with a guy that, hits his kids, and he doesn't mean to. He has to be able to feel that he's getting irritated. You can't stop hitting your kids if you can't feel you're getting irritated. Do you see? He goes, I have to be able to feel I'm getting irritated before I hit them. I go, good. You'd have to do. What would you have to do to be able to feel that you're being irritated? Oh God, I nothing. I can't do it. Then you hit that because so far you don't know how to do that. Does that make sense? Can't do that. Then the work comes. What we've been talking about, effort. Then we learn, grow up. We learn how to do that. Then we're working. See, then I'm working in therapy with somebody. They know what they're working towards. They know this is really hard, but they're inspired to be able to tell they're irritated because they don't want to hit their kids. And they want to be this person who knows what they feel and has a range of options. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then you know what you're doing, you know why you're putting in the effort, and you're resourced. You cannot work with yourself. No, I don't want you being perfect. I just want you doing what you want. Like you want to be somebody who doesn't hit your kid. So you're in a trance being a robot hitting your kids when you don't want to. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to make you a perfect person. Just we're working towards your goal. Does that make sense? Now that's a line, that's still 3D. Okay, now I'm going to take it into whoop whoop, more into 5D. What kind of parents in this, let's say this abuse incident, let's say. In that abuse incident, what would you have liked to have happened instead? Well, I would like a mother that picked me up and hugged me when I fell and didn't slap me. Can you picture right now, what would that feel like if you had a mother like that? Blah, 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 blah. Can you picture right now having a mother like that? So, you can change your past. You're making it up anyway. You got 2 billion bits and whatever it is of data coming in, you're only processing 1 million. I explained this the other day to all you guys. But when I went to my high school reunion, and I didn't remember a whole person that lived with me in my apartment, I clearly realized we make up our history, right? Because that wasn't part of the story I made up, that she lived with me for a year. I forgot. So it wasn't part of the story I made up about my college days. Does that make sense? Like, whoa. And I imagine if you have siblings, you're always getting hit with that, but my siblings are dead, so I'm like, whoa, like, I pick what I'm remembering. I was like, whoa, I pick what I'm remembering. Even with highly abusive life, there's other things happening that I'm not remembering. There was a lot of trauma that year, and I didn't remember that. I really remembered the trauma. But then I go, there was a lot of other things happening besides that trauma that I completely have forgotten. Does that make sense?
Mm. Do you think our brain works that way? Like when you're going into trauma, like say a car accident, things seem to slow down.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, that's true. Your brain wipes out. Cortisol. You can't think when cortisol's pumping in your brain. It's not possible. That's why you can't think, because you can't think. It's physically not possible. And you notice that when you're activated, having an adrenaline rush, you notice you're not thinking properly. You notice it, and you can't make yourself think. I'll stand there going, I can't even make myself think, you know. You know, your kid's driving you crazy and you're going over the edge and you go, I know there's something I should be doing, but, you know, beats me. You can't think. You've all felt, it's just physical. It's not like you can say, but you can resource your history. You don't have to keep repeating the same negative history to yourself over and over and over and over and over and over again like a mantra. Does that make sense? So one of the people at my high school reunion said to me, what I remember about you is you were always kind and generous and you had humor. That is not how I remember me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so since then, I've been picturing myself as a little kid, because she knew me from grammar school and high school. I'm picturing myself as a little kid going, she was kind and generous and she had humor. I'm inserting it. And now I'm a grown up who for all those years was kind and generous and naturally had humor. So that you don't have to have the history you have. And you certainly don't have to be dominated by it because you're making it up literally anyway. You really are. And you're making it up by you just can take in this much data and you're not the rest. It's not possible. So it's not this fancy be positive stuff. It's, okay, if I'm making it up anyway, what serves me? What works for me? They're all saying I was kind and generous and have humor. Why don't I take it on? Why do I remember the terror and the shame and the fear? I don't know. Is it raining or something?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Oh. Yeah.
So it's not only you remember it, you keep chanting it to yourself. That's what you have to watch. You're accountable for what you chant to yourself all the time. You're actively programming yourself and you're accountable to that. 5D, are you being manipulated by past and future in 5D?
No.
Notice that. Are you taking in data in 5D?
Yeah.
Notice that. I mean, you're taking in whatever is possible to take in, but you're not talking reality to yourself by grabbing the past and throwing it onto the present. Notice that. So you're not contaminating this moment. That's why 5D is practical, because you're not contaminating this moment. We can constantly contaminate this moment by sticking the past on top of it. And then taking our fears of the future and then sticking that on top of it. And it's amazing we don't get stuck in the swamp. We do. But it's amazing we don't get stuck more often than we do. So get big and just notice that it's practical. But when you can't be in 5D, then just be where you are. So, right, but see how fast you get into it now, just when I tell you to, though. That's astounding. All day we've been in 3D. Right now I'm telling you, get in 5D. Feel the space between your cells. Feel the space between the bodies in the room. Feel how if I open an orange, the other side of the room can smell it. Feel how permeable you are. And let the top of your head open up. There's a lot of misconception. You think that if you're in the absolute, like if you're in the absolute, you don't have to learn how to drive a car. You'll just know. Is that true? No. I tell you, you learn faster because you're not contaminating yourself all the time, but you still have to learn it. If you're in the absolute and you're going from crawling to walking, are you going to do that without falling? No, you're going to fall a million times. But what will be different is how you think about it, yeah? A little baby just gets up. You know, they're not making a big giant story about how they're never going to be able to walk and how, like, oh God, the other baby's walking already and I'm not. You know, you just, can you feel that's what is different? But that's a giant difference. You still have to learn. That's exactly the difference. It's not like, I used to get it mixed up. I think, oh, I could sail a boat. No, you can't. It could be in the absolute doesn't mean you can sail a boat. It does mean you'd learn how to sail a boat faster because you're not saying, oh, I'll never learn this. Oh, God, I hate water. Oh, what if I drown? Oh. I had a grandfather that drowned once. And
It's like being contaminated, isn't it?
yeah. So there needs to be commitment now that you don't want to contaminate out of habit. You actually need commitment. I don't want to contaminate out of habit. It's not something I'm going to do. I will take action not to. You notice you're contaminating out of habit, stop. In Zen they say refrain. Refrain and grow. Refrain and grow. Refrain from slapping a kid and learn how to feel what you're feeling before you do the slap. Refrain and grow. Refrain from the bad behaviors. I tell you, if you do it with loops, they go away. Let's hear some examples, you know. What's some loops that you just refrain. They're not even, if you look back 5 years, they're not there anymore. Remember when you didn't want to go out of the house if you had a pimple on your face?
No.
Remember the stuff you said to yourself? You notice it, you probably don't do that anymore. Be a shame if you did, but you probably don't do that anymore. Like, wow, look at that, you know?
Wrinkles instead.
Oh, you do it with wrinkles instead. You switch. That you have to watch. You switch pimples for wrinkles. You keep the mechanistic response moving through space. Just change the content. It's called like warped creativity or something.